Guess what time it is?
It's time for Ghostacles.
We have a different song every time.
Was that different? That was last year.
Yeah.
That's kind of the Howdy Doody theme.
Right. Mine was, it's Ghostacles time. It's Ghostacles time. It's ghosty, mosty, wosty, ghosty, something Ghostacles time. And it has nothing at all to do with testicles or something like that.
I was just getting away from the testicles reference, and now I'm back because you reminded me.
I'll always remind you of testicles, Michael.
I promise you, I don't need to be reminded of testicles.
That's going to be on a shirt next. I'll always remind you of testicles.
Testicles are never far from my thoughts, so you don't have to really take the effort. You really.
How are you?
Oh, the places I'll go. I'm good. I'm very good.
Where are you going tomorrow, Michael? Like, I'm not jealous.
It's this whole fucking thing. I gotta take this trip to Hawaii.
Oh, God, it's going to be brutal.
It's my third time to go.
I hate you.
I mean, once you've been there 3 times, what really is there to see anymore?
Your friend that you had go with you, maybe, in the future.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. You guys are making a vacation out of it, though.
Yeah. We're going to a convention for a few days, and they are graciously putting us up in a hotel for several days after, so we can stick around and do some hiking, maybe some diving. Last time we were there, we did a deep sea, well, not a deep sea dive, but a scuba dive.
A mid-sea dive?
We went down 120 feet.
That's deep for me.
About the deepest you can go before you need different
certifications.
Different certifications, and it's a different kind of dive. Like you have to take different sort of you have to take liquid oxygen or some variant of that.
How does that work?
You breathe it in.
You breathe in liquid oxygen.
There's such a thing called liquid oxygen, and there's other forms of this, and they're liquid. And the reason it has to be liquid and not air is because it equalizes the pressure in your body. At that depth, the pressure is so immense that you need like all the help you can get.
So you can just breathe in liquid and you're fine with it.
I've never done that before, so I have no idea if I'm fine with it.
I feel like my body would not be fine with it.
I think we all did it for 9 months. In the womb.
Yeah, it's been a while. I forgot.
It's like riding a bicycle. No, it's not. I'm sure that kind of dive terrifies me. But you can be down there at just with a normal oxygen tank. You can be down at like 120 feet or so for like 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Before you can only be down there for 15 minutes before you have to do a decomp dive. And a decomp dive requires a lot more oxygen than you have in a typical tank. So you're fucked. And you can give yourself the bends if you resurface.
What are the bends?
So, okay,
it sounds like diarrhea in a dive suit.
It's so much worse. It's so much worse than diarrhea in a dive suit. But I'm sure there's a name for that too. The bends are basically if you come up, you have to rise slowly. It's a controlled ascent after you've been down at any depth for a while, because otherwise the buildup of nitrogen comes out so quickly that it can like form bubbles in your joints and in your lungs, things like that. And so it's very bad. And it can kill you if you're not. It's the worst you will ever feel in your life if it happens and you do survive. And they have to put you the only way to treat it is to put you under they put you in a pressurized room for however long, and then slowly decrease the pressure until your body is adjusted.
Yikes.
Again. And it can take like 6 days.
And diving is fun for you.
Well, not when that happens, but
I mean, it's worth the risk.
But if the rules are very simple to follow, and as long as you follow the rules, that won't happen. So, like, if you're going down that far, you have a dive watch or a dive computer, which is like a watch, but it'll tell you, okay, it's time to go ahead and come up.
Yeah.
And then once you're up, once you come back up to like 100 or 60 feet or whatever, like each depth, you can stay at how do I phrase this? The less far down you are, the longer you can stay at that depth. So you can stay at like 30 feet for an hour, but 60 feet, 45 minutes, 120 feet, 20 minutes, and so on and so forth. And then also, it's just part of. They've worked all this out for you.
Science.
You just have to pay attention to like when to go up and how long to stay, or how long it should take you to ascend.
I think I will just stick with snorkeling, because the worst
snorkeling is much safer, but you can't go down 120 feet with snorkeling.
Oh, well, I guess I'll just have to deal with the water in my mask and just being able to sit up out of the water.
Diving is very scary the first few times you do it. It is. Yeah. I was terrified.
Snorkeling was scary for me the first time I did it. The fish got real close to me. It was too fucking close. I didn't ask that fish to come up to me. And then somebody said, oh, well, if you just go like you're going to touch them, they get out of your way. No, they fucking don't. And then you touch a fish in the middle of the ocean. It's horrible.
Brandon, the first time I did an actual open water dive in the ocean, we descended through a school of jellyfish. We didn't know because we couldn't see them until we were in the water.
See, that's what I don't like about water.
But thankfully they were tiny little things. They didn't sting at all.
Were they clear?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen those. Those, yeah.
And but other than that, and we've had a stingray got really close to Brandon that he thought was small and far away.
And the only thing you can think is crocodile hunter.
Or you mean? Oh yeah, Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
and
what
that thing,
thought.
he got it on film too while he was. Brandon did while he was the GoPro thing, and it was like
it was terrifying.
He thought it was really far. He thought it was small and far away, or he thought it was far away, and it was actually just. He thought it was small and up close, and it was actually big and far away. Yeah. And it was like, "Hey, how you doing?" It came toward him. You can hear him on the video going, "Ooh," but he was fine. Like at no point was he like in mortal danger. It's just like, okay, that can kill me, and I'm really close to it. If it decides to kill me, they usually won't. They don't fuck with you unless they want to eat you, and most things down there don't because you look like a lot of work.
They're not wrong. But for anyone listening that is possibly considering having a full-on anxiety attack, I'm with you. I cannot. I'll
go on better. So when we went down 120 feet in Hawaii, it was to see the wreckage of a downed World War II jet.
Oh, yeah.
Which was really kind of cool. We've also done a wreck dive in the Grand Cayman where we actually went inside the remains of the ship and toured it, so you're like inside where you can't ascend easily. You have to swim out. If something goes wrong, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because you're inside a ship.
Panic attack.
You can't just go
right
up.
Now. Full on. I don't like it. Well,
it was really fun though.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
but anyway, so I don't know.
Your word
this has nothing to do with anything that we're going to talk about in this episode of Ghostacles.
You said ghost ship and a downed airplane. So that could be ghost. Except the guy that was flying the plane didn't die. He ejected.
Yeah, he did. It went down in a training exercise.
But it was a Corsair, which we have talked about before.
Yes.
So there we have it. Now we're connected. Ghost stories. Woo! It's Ghostacles time.
And today's theme is like you're doing pets, right? We're doing pets.
Yeah, there was a lot of
ghost
pet
stories
stuff
surrounding pets.
Yeah,
fish or pets. Okay, that was weak, but I tried.
Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay, so
I've talked enough.
We have Ash, who submitted several stories, and so there will actually be 3 stories from Ash, so I'm going to read those. But I'll just read one, and then you can read one, and then I'll read another.
Because I've got 3 stories from 3 different people.
I know.
That are Ash.
I know. Okay, so here we go. I had the good fortune when I was 14 to move to England, the result of a promotion for my father.
That's awesome.
I know. We moved into a historic farmhouse. I feel like I want to say we moved into an historic farmhouse on Walcott Estate in Lincolnshire. The Limestone. That's what I'm saying.
It's not how they say that. Stop it. Now you're just making fun of an accent.
I absolutely am. That's correct. Well, it's not Lincolnshire. It's Lincolnshire. So why would limestone not be limestone? Limestone. Anyway.
Okay, you're probably right.
The limestone house. Speaking of which, a limestone house has got to conduct a lot of fucking shit.
Yeah,
limestone is known for...
Yeah, it's got quite a reputation for attracting the dead folk.
It holds on to energy. So, and in Dallas, a lot of places are built right up on top of limestone. So the idea of having an entire house made out of limestone is fucking terrifying. Good for you, Ash. Okay, so the limestone house was large with a sizable plot of land connected to it, right next to a small family dairy farm. Along with my parents and my younger brother, Mason, we also brought our family dog, a Rottweiler named Zach, as well as my cockatiel and my ferret, Jasmine. Cockatiel is clearly the least favorite of pets because there's no name. We were starting to settle into our no judgment. We were starting to settle into our new, if temporary, home, and when those disturbances began. The first woke me up in the early morning hours as my bedroom was on the landing of the second floor. Someone was stomping loudly and deliberately up and down the stairs. This happened twice that night, and I was too tired to get out of bed to go gripe at the offender. Respect. So I decided to wait until morning. When I confronted everyone at the breakfast table, however, no one admitted to having been on the stairs, nor had they heard anything in their own rooms. Frustrated, but with nothing else to be done, I dropped the subject. Nothing happened for a few nights until I woke up to the sound of my ferret screaming. Now,
ferrets can scream?
I don't know if you've ever heard the sound of a ferret scream.
I have not.
But it sounds like a human baby. Oh. And it was a terrifying noise to wake up to, having not heard it before myself, and knowing for absolute certainty there was no baby in my room. Once I realized it was her, I searched for the source of her fear. I didn't have too far to look. In the corner of my room, beside her cage, was a dark shape, human in height, but undefined. It bent over about halfway where one might expect a person's waist to be, and Jasmine was staring right at it, hackles raised. I jumped from my bed, dove to her cage, unlatched the door, and scooped her out. As I did, I felt a wave of cold air from my left where the shape hovered. I raced back to my bed and hopped on it where I could have Jasmine in my lap and watch the shape. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me and maybe Jasmine had just had a nightmare. Then, the dark shape straightened as if the person stood upright, and I swear I felt it turn to look at me. Now, I was scared, but I was also angry that this thing had not only woken me up, but scared my ferret. Now listen here, I said firmly to the form. I don't know who you are, but you are scaring her and me. You can't be here anymore. You died, and you need to move on to wherever you're supposed to go. We live here now, and we aren't going to leave. You'll have to move on. I felt brave for a 14-year-old girl. You are brave for an any-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. And to my surprise, the shape seemed to turn towards the wall and melted through it. That wall led to the outside of the house. We decided to do a little research after I told my mother what happened the next morning. Our farmhouse, the neighbor's house next door, which was a large converted barn, and the surrounding lands were originally a retreat for ailing monks. Of course, as with many illnesses, some did not return to their duties and died in that house. While we never felt any evil intent during the disturbances, we also didn't appreciate a disruptive housemate. Thankfully, that was the last time we were troubled by him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for the screaming ferret.
I know.
That would be me. I would be the screaming ferret. Ah! Ah! At least a screaming ferret sounds like a baby and not like a grown man. That would be so much more jarring.
Yeah, that's true.
To sound like a grown man, or like
at least the ferret was making the noise, and not, yeah. At least the ferret was making the noise, and not the shadow. Can you imagine the shadow making the noise of a baby scream? Oh, no.
And the ferret's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on over there, but we should
get
leave.
me out of this cage. And also, that's awesome to just be like, I got to save my ferret. Before, risking your life to save it.
If anything was bugging Genji, I get real brave. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get real brave. Like I'm walking him, and like say, if I'm walking by myself and like some big mean looking dog comes up and starts like growling at me like it wants to fucking rumble, I'm gonna be scared shitless.
Right.
If I'm with Genji, I'm gonna be like, you fucking back off, you little fucker. Like, I get really mean with the dog. I'm like, you go home. What you're thinking? Like, bad dog, go home.
Yeah, my mom told me that once because when I lived, I just lived in an area that dogs got out a lot, or there were a lot of strays. And so I would walk my friend's pit bull and Leela, just a little 11-pound Shih Tzu. And so many times we would have some fucking dog run up on us. And I was telling my mom about it, and she was like, anytime that happens, consider that almost all dogs know no. Mm-hmm. They know the word no. And so if you say no to them like you would your dog and tell them to go home or go away or back up or something like that and shame them, they almost always respond to that. So after that, it had been a few days, and I was walking, and this dog just ran across the busy street after us, and I shouted at it while it was it was full on attacking. And the other concern with that is if it started attacking Ruby, I couldn't stop her if she was in defending mode. And she was very defensive of Leela. Probably of me, but mostly of Leela. She wanted to protect her friend that she was also terrified of. So this dog came running and she saw it and, her head shot up and her hackles raised and everything. Leela was... she could still see at the time, but she gave no shits. And if she had barked at that dog, it would have stopped too, because they're all terrified of her. But halfway through the street, I just shouted, "No, bad dog!" And it froze in the middle of the street. And I said, "Go home. You better get home." And it turned around and went home.
I know. Well,
it's the craziest thing.
How the fuck did she know the magic words?
I know. And so
who the fuck told her?
I did that all the time, and it worked every fucking time. I even did it for a guy that was like driving by and like trying to heckle me while I was jogging.
You were like, "No, bad dog,
That's exactly go home." And he did. He drove away.
Wow.
So there's a
life lessons.
I know. All right, what's yours?
So this is about a cat.
Yay.
And this comes from Everlyn. I like that name, Evelyn. Sophie was a cat that I did a visit for a while. Their owner was away this past week. I always knew as a pet sitter, it wasn't a matter of if I got a house that was haunted, it was when. The first 2 visits started off rather normally, but on the second, I began to suspect that something was off. Sophie would sit and stare at the bathroom door with her tail twitching, like she was ready to pounce on something. She did this every day. Things would be moved, but I always thought it was the cat or maybe another family member who was stopping by to make sure I was actually doing my job, which has happened before. Rude. I sent the owner a message and placed the items that were being moved up and away in a bathroom cabinet, closing the door behind me for good measure. I didn't want the cat to play with these things that she shouldn't be. The knob on the bathroom was round, and with her missing one of her back legs, I figured she wouldn't be able to open the door. Aww. The next day, the owner got back to me and said that the only person that had a key was me. When I got to the house for my visit, the bathroom door was open, and everything I had placed in the cabinet had been pulled out and was all over the floor. Oh. The cabinet door was shut. None of the items were harmful to the cat, but I couldn't figure out how she would have been able to open the door and get them out of the cabinet, then shut the cabinet again. As if this couldn't get any better.
And the cat doesn't have the key. She's the only one with the key.
Well, the cat's already in the house.
I know, but still.
As if this couldn't get any better, the house had a basement. She includes, for our edification, a hashtag fuck a basement. Thank you. Thank you, Everlyn.
She gets it.
The cat's litter box is down there, which I had to go daily to clean. From the 3rd day on, whenever I was down there without the cat, I would see shadows moving in the corner of my eye and in 2 of the bedrooms that were in the basement. On the 5th day, we both reacted to a noise we heard that I still can't explain. It sounded like a man incoherently yelling at us while we were playing with some of her toys. Like an idiot, I called out and started recording just in case someone was in the house. Smart.
I know.
But I opened all the doors and couldn't find anyone. There was, just a side note, objects were still moving around in between my visits.
Eee.
The 7th and last day was the most active. While I was getting her wet food ready, the front door unlocked and opened. No one was there. I went to shut it. The back door unlocked and opened as well.
No!
It had been pretty windy.
The ghost has a key.
Yeah, the ghost has a key.
Right. But I thought it was already in the house. See, this is why it's important to know the cat didn't have a key.
It had been pretty windy, so I just assumed that I may not have closed them all the way, but I always lock the doors.
Yeah.
When I was in the basement cleaning the litter box, the cat ran up the stairs, which I knew was my cue to get moving.
Listen to your pets.
Yes, that's very much the canary in the coal mine. I was almost done when the light flipped off, and I felt a cold breeze on the back of my neck.
No.
I hurried up the stairs and finished my visit in the living room with no other incidents except Sophie staring at the bathroom door.
Fuck a basement and fuck that bathroom.
Fuck that bathroom.
Oh my God.
And I'm just going to say it. Maybe fuck that cat. I feel like that cat was helping whatever it was. Just like, I'm just going to stare at this. Sometimes cats, I don't know, Sophie. She may be a very sweet cat. My cat that I had for years loved to just pretend he was seeing shit because he knew it freaked me out. I'm convinced of this.
Pretend to see things in the house that you lived in that was actually haunted.
That's not the point. The point is, I think, I don't know.
Now,
I wouldn't be surprised if Angus was actually actively misdirecting me. Like the ghost was actually behind me, but Angus was looking forward to distract my attention away from the ghost. So the ghost could sneak up on me. That's what I think happened.
That could be it.
Fucking asshole cat.
But I feel like
I love that cat. He was just so weird.
Because she ran up the stairs. Like, she's like, let's get out of here. Well, actually, she was more like fear, fuck everything and run.
A dog would have been like, "Mom, we got to go." Like a dog would have been at your like heels, going, "Hey, we need to go. We need to go."
Dot did not try to save me from a balloon that popped. She ran away.
Okay, fair.
I think it's more just like listen to the animals.
Yeah.
Because they know what's going on. There's something going on. And it's always weird.
Talk to the animals.
Yeah. Also, I'm always wondering if like they see a little bug on the wall or something that you can't see. Cats, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, their eyesight's real good.
Yeah, it is.
So.
And their noses. Mm-hmm. And dogs, like, when they smell the sidewalk, they'll smell for, like, what happened there the past 24 hours. That's how strong their sense of smell is. So it's like when they go outside and they want to smell everything, it's because they're like, reading the best book ever. It's such a, like,
and if they could talk,
experience.
They'd be like Hannibal Lecter. "Oh, you sometimes wear a Chanel 25 knockoff. But not today."
Exactly. That's what dogs think about. Oh my God, so good. Oh, okay, so there's Doug and Ash's next one.
Good.
Okay. About a year or so after we moved into the house, Zach developed hip dysplasia and his back legs failed him. We phoned the vet who made the house call as Zach had not been able to walk for over 24 hours, and we knew it was his time. We were told to give him room as his body might spasm post-injections. After being given the lethal concoction, somehow he managed to stand, walk the few feet across the carpet to my mother, lay his head in her lap, drawing his last breath as she stroked his head gently. That's so sweet and sad.
Very sad.
Even the vet had no idea how it was possible, but I am pleased to say that he died peacefully and his body reacted very little to the stillness of his heart. I'm gonna weep about that later. Okay. Let's get it together, guys. Fucking get your shit together. Okay. For several days after, I would continue to hear the jingle of his collar and the sound of him snoring in his bed by the second door we never used. I would hear him chew his food or lap at his water or feel my toes touch his fur as I reached the bottom of the stairs. It was his favorite place to sleep at night since he couldn't climb the steps to our rooms, and we often bumped our feet against him heading down to the kitchen. Finally, at the breakfast table with my brother and myself, Mom looked at us and said, "You know, I swear Zach is still in the house." She meant it as a half jest, but Mason and I glanced at each other briefly. Still, it was enough to know that we had the same thought at that moment. "Mom," I asked, "what makes you think that?" As we listened, she told us about the same occurrences that I had been experiencing, and Mason admitted to having similar instances of his own. It made us all feel good that he might still be in the house with us. We started talking to him as if he was present, and it was strange, but comforting too. One night, not long after our breakfast conversation, we heard in our house the sounds of a helicopter overhead and the lights of police cars through the windows. We locked all the doors and decided to settle in for the night to watch a movie. Soon after, we heard barking near the house. Very near, in fact, as it almost sounded like it was coming from inside the house at the door we never used, the original front door where Zach's bed had been. We assumed it to be our neighbor's border collie, Badger, disturbed by the activity and paid no more attention. The news in the morning left us all feeling a little vulnerable. The police had actually been chasing an escaped convict. Their units had lost his trail near our house. According to the policeman interviewed, they were able to locate and apprehend the convict when a resident's dog started barking, alerting units to the location. We saw our neighbors either later that day or the following, I can't remember which, and thanked them for Badger's bravery during the incident. The couple looked at each other in confusion and explained to us that they had been visiting family in New Zealand and had taken Badger with them.
Whoa!
Our little hamlet had only 12 houses, and we knew for certain there were no other dogs on this end of the road through this area. Whoa! Sadly, the familiar sounds eventually stopped, but we believe Zach had stayed a little longer to protect us and give us time to accept that he was no longer going to be in our lives. This story had everything.
That's a
so good.
Every fucking thing.
Everything.
So good.
We're laughing, we're crying, we're scared.
I laughed, I cried, it became a part of me. Oh my God.
So
okay.
Good. Oh,
this is so good too. So sad. Well, this is going to be kind of sad too, and in a similar vein. This is from Allie. Allie says, my 2 dogs, Molly and Oakley, were the best dogs an only child could have hoped to grow up with. They were my partners in crime and my protectors, even after their departures from this world to the next. Always a team, they passed away within 6 months of each other, and for years after, I could hear their collars jingle or their claws click against the vinyl floor in the den where they once spent their nights, and that room consistently made me feel like I had to watch my back. I figured that it was just my reaction to having the spirits of my dogs in there. When I was a freshman in college, 3 or 4 years after their passing, I decided I would try to make contact with them. I knew the dangers of using a Ouija board and steered clear, but they didn't stop me from sitting in the den in the middle of the night when my parents were out of town. Nothing seemed to happen while I asked if they were there, or anyone else for that matter, and I went to bed. As I slept that night, I dreamt...
Someone needs a phone app.
As I slept that night, I dreamt the dogs were with me in the den, standing at attention with their floppy ears perked up and their tails straight. They were watching something behind me. I turned to see a cloudy black mass waiting to hurt me. I tried to run, but there were no doors to be found. The black mass stood still as Molly and Oakley glared at it, snarling. Then I woke up. I realized that the anxious feeling in the den was not the spirits of my beloved dogs, but rather some evil thing they had protected me from. So armed with sage and my Bible, I stood in the den that night and told all evil spirits present to leave. No, bad dog, go home. I paid no mind to the gusts of wind outside. Oregon is known for its rain. As I closed my Bible, I turned to the door and left calmly. In my dream later that night, I saw my dogs again in the den, this time sitting happily and wagging their tails. I hugged and kissed them both before opening the door to the backyard. They had done their duty of protecting me, and now it was time to go. I woke up feeling sad, but safe. Those dogs are still my guardian angels, though I don't hear or see them anymore the way I used to. Every now and again, I see a pair of similar-looking dogs trotting down the street or chasing each other in a field, and I know that they are still keeping an eye on me from afar.
Oh, that's so sweet.
See, ghost dogs are good for protecting you from evil spirits and evil spirits that happen to be humans that just want to break in. Like the felon. Dogs are just so perfect. They're like perfect little fucking angels. I love dogs.
Well, they're perfect for us, but other people, cats are perfect for, and birds are perfect for, or snakes or lizards.
Dogs are just, I've said this before, dogs are angels with just bad table manners.
It's true.
Cats are more like people. So cats are more complicated and sometimes can be real assholes. They can also be fucking lovely, and I adore cats as well, but like dogs are just so...
He's sad because he's going to miss Kenji while he's spending all that time in Hawaii.
Right here.
Quick, everybody, let's feel so bad for him. All right, so
I'll bring you back a fucking hula girl dashboard hula girl.
Great.
I'll bring you back some macadamia nuts.
Oh, I like macadamia.
Okay, I'll bring you.
Don't feed those to dogs. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Very good. Yes,
everybody.
Very poisonous. So are grapes.
Grapes
and chocolate.
Macadamia nuts and chocolate. We have chocolate.
Yeah.
White chocolate's fine because it's not chocolate, but it's still delicious.
So good.
Sugar. All right. Okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
We lived, this is Ash again. We lived in England for 4 years before my mother, brother, and I moved to Florida. That's different. About 6 months later, Jasmine started to show signs of rapid decline. Jasmine was the ferret, remember? Her vet confirmed she had several tumors in her abdomen and fluid building in her lungs. We decided to end her suffering as surgery was impossible. Just over a week later, when I was ready, I chose to donate her things to a ferret rescue rather than anywhere else, since I knew specialty rescues were often overlooked. There, I was introduced to the potential adoptees, and as insisted by the rescue's president, who also owned the property, and met Trixie. I had no intentions of adopting another ferret so soon, but on the ride home, I came to the conclusion that I had fallen in love with the petite girl. Hey, Mom, I began. She just chuckled and smiled. We can go get her tomorrow, she replied. And so Trixie made herself at home in Jasmine's old cage, sleeping in her hammock, playing with a few toys I had kept, even Jasmine's favorite, a stuffed zebra. It was fun to watch her play with thin air, bouncing around the room as if her feet had springs. It was a habit I'd never seen Jasmine display, and I found it amusing. Soon after, I was asked to foster others, and I ended up with 5 in total. That's like my friend Amy and cats. I would let them out during the day when I was home, and at night they were all collected up and settled into their respective spots in the cage, which was actually a second cage now attached to the first to accommodate them all. One night, not long after the Fosters had arrived, I heard the familiar pitter-patter of ferret feet running around my room, clattering through the plastic tunnel maze under my bed, and duking, yes, that's what their playful noises are actually called, cheerfully. Duking cheerfully. Just pausing for laughter. I know that's happening. I'm about to go take a duke cheerfully. That's going to be in all of our languages.
If you're going to duke, you should do it cheerfully.
That's right.
Duke cheerfully.
Yeah. Okay. I saw. All right. So we left it duking cheerfully. I sighed, wondering which ferret I had left out as I turned on the light, since I swore I had gotten them all. The doors were all still firmly closed. All of the ferrets were sound asleep, and the noises stopped. I searched my room, wondering if there was a rat or some other uninvited guest that could have made the sounds. I found nothing. I started watching my ferrets more closely and realized Trixie wasn't the only one to play with thin air. I had never had a group of ferrets before, just Jasmine alone, so I had not had the chance to see them really interact with each other. As I watched carefully, I could recognize their body language and realized they were actually playing with an invisible friend. Every so often, I would still hear the sounds of a ferret playing at night, and for many months, my ferrets would play with seemingly no one. One day, the noises stopped, and so did their love of dancing with an unseen partner.
Oh,
it's
a ghost of a ferret.
It is.
Oh,
I think I had
so fucking cute.
I think one of my cats would chase my sugar glider that died. I had a sugar glider, and after that, got a kitten, and he would run up on the side of the couch and like pounce in different areas, like he was jumping at something that was running, and I used to think it was a fly or something like that. Yeah, there was never anything there, and he did the whole time I lived in that little duplex. Yeah.
Wow.
So cool.
I love it.
Trixie and Jasmine and
ferrets are so much fun. Yeah. They're so cute.
Yeah, they are.
They're so hyper. Everyone I've seen anyway. I'm not an expert, but all right. Well, our last story comes from Max. Max says, when I was a little girl, around 3 or 4 years old, I would tell my mother about a red brick house with wooden floors in Alabama. This happened pretty frequently, at least once or twice a week for several months. I would tell her about the woman named Slappy and her cat, Shadow. At first, my mother never really thought anything of it, considering I was the 4th child of the family. She figured Slappy and Shadow were simply my imaginary playmates. I would not only tell my mother about Slappy and Shadow, I would tell my grandmother, Mama, and Papa, and everyone else who would listen. As I said before, they thought I was just imagining things, as most 4-year-olds would, until I gave a full description of this woman to my mother. But only after I had told my mother, Slappy said, "She loves you," did she start asking me questions about how old the lady might be. Something about the way I said it made her ask what color her hair was and what she wore. I described Shadow to her as well. After a few weeks, my mother pulled out her photo albums and began looking at pictures from when she was a child. As we were flipping through the photo album pages, I stopped my mother and pointed to a photograph and excitedly exclaimed, there's Slappy." In the picture, her hair was white and wavy. She wore a pink and white striped dress along with round gold-plated glasses and was standing next to my mother in a fenced-in backyard with a cat's tail peeking out in the background. She then explained to me that the white-haired woman was her grandmother, who had passed away many years before I was born. She kind of teared up, but was smiling at the same time. I could tell that it had made her a little emotional, so I gave her a hug. And again, I told her that Slappy said she loves you. She also explained that she did not live in Alabama, but in Georgia, and that she would not have had a cat with her. She was slightly allergic to them, but that maybe in heaven we do not have allergies any longer. And she had my mother's childhood cat with her in the picture. But that cat's name was Granddaddy. Shadow was a gray and white cat with white textured fur that looked similar to Granddaddy in the photo. My mother explained to me that what I was seeing were called spirits, and although I was a bit surprised to know I was talking to someone who's dead with a different energy from this earth, it didn't exactly scare me. As I grew up, I eventually talked about Slappy, Shadow, and the red brick house less and less. Even though I've gotten older, I still see them sometimes, and it makes me feel at peace to know my family really is watching over us. Thank you very much for reading, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Oh,
it's very nice.
That was a good letter.
That's a good one.
Thank you guys for your messages.
It's fun. So warm. These ones are nice and warm. Animals being helpful and grandmas saying we love you.
If we get a group of them at a time, that we must need to be doing that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's kind of...
I love it. You use Ghostacles to like be warm and friendly, and the main episodes to scare the shit out of people.
That's right. It's true.
It's all about balance.
Yeah. Well, but we do some creepy shit on these. That's
true.
Too.
That's true.
It's just they seem...
Ghost stories have range. They have range. They can have all the emotions. Why not?
With more, I think, sweeter ones in the Ghostacles than always in the...
I think so.
Yeah, because there's so many. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, so, all right. Well, I guess until next time.
This episode,
yeah, thank you guys. Oh, check out the website, ghoulintentions.com.
Yes.
Check out the t-shirts on ghoulintentions.com. Check out the Twitter at ghoulintent. Check out the Instagram at ghoulintentions. Check out the Facebook page at ghoulintentions page. Check out send us your stories on the ghoulintentions.com.
And submit the stories. And take pictures of yourself with the merch.
And
if you buy stuff.
Send it to us.
Yes.
And follow and subscribe and
all the things.
And reviewing and the 5-starring or however many starrings or the most stars.
All the stars.
And also remember, it's okay to sleep with the lights on. All the ferrets were sound asleep. I'm sorry. I have to go back. I was losing oxygen. Okay. It was coming. I was finding it. Okay. I was playing it then.